proof. There's simply no evidence to prove it exactly as he is. Plus, I believe that human knowledge itself is flawed because the perception of humans of the world is flawed because their senses are flawed. You know, I had this conversation many times with many people, and sometimes people do something that I like to call polite heckling. What does it mean? What do I mean by polite heckling?
Content over everything!
It's basically engaging in a discussion with a person without actually trying to understand anything at all. And all you're doing is to wait for the right moment to humiliate the argument. You're not even attacking the person, you're just trying to make the argument of the other person sound ridiculous. You're not disproving it, you just try to... Sorry?
Hey,
what am I doing right now? Come here, bro. Come here. Let's talk about this. Hey, come on, bro.
So you're saying you like to dance?
It's fine.
So you're saying you like to dance with monkeys?
Different from the subject, bro.
So you're saying you like to dance with monkeys?
To dance with monkeys?
Yes. I'm high. I can't breathe.
Well, I never tried it, but you never know.
So you said that you're agnostic, yeah? Or you didn't say you're agnostic, but you said that.
Well, I didn't say it, but I suppose I would fall on the category of agnostic because I don't believe in God, but I will God to exist.
So what's agnostic to you?
Basically, agnosticism is not being certain about a certain... yeah. No, not even that.
Wait, bro, we're having a conversation, please, man.
Yeah, and I'm interrupted.
It's cool.
I'm interrupted.
He's doing the same as you did, bro.
He's doing the same as you did. You're agnostic about the tooth fairy?
About the tooth fairy?
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say so because the tooth fairy is a very, very, very specific kind of
you see these people?
So is Allah.
You see these people? They don't want to speak, you know. Hey, look, TNT screen, look. I'm speaking. This is his friend.
You did the same thing.
I'm having one conversation with him.
Bro, you did exactly the same thing. I was talking to this guy specifically
about Dawah channels.
when you came to me and started asking questions.
Well remembered.
You did exactly the same thing, bro.
You know the way. Actually, wait. Let me go on camera. Actually,
okay.
Hold up. This brother, wait. This brother, yeah. What's your name again, bro?
Pavlov.
Yeah. Pavlov. I've been nice to meet you. Yeah. This brother said, yeah, let's go on camera, yeah, and let's have this conversation. And then I said to him, I don't want to go on camera, which I don't. That's why I'm standing there. Then when the camera comes, yeah, you're not engaging in a conversation with me. You will rather deflect.
Because he asked me a question.
No, but when we're but this is the thing. When the camera comes on and we're speaking about a topic, you shouldn't like beat all over the bush. You should just stick onto the subject matter.
Well, that's what you think. If you ask me a question,
okay. Anyway,
I'll answer
nice conversation with you then, bro. Carry on, innit? Do your thing.
Well, is that it? You're finished. You don't want to.
No, you're finished, bro. I'm not finished.
Dude, he just left. The guy just left.
Do your thing, innit?
Okay, bye. Anyway, I wanted to have a little bit of a talk about the SC Dawa channel, and I prepared a few notes here because I've been talking to many people, different races, different religions, different everything, and I think it's safe to say if you watch many of my videos, which not all of my talks came into video, that I respect very much when people have something worthy to show me. Whether it's a different religion, it's a different society, it's a different culture, it's fine. If they show me something of worth, I respect it perfectly. It's great, amazing. And I said the same about the Islamic age, the golden Islamic age. It's a very, very good period in the history of mankind. A lot of innovations were made. But still, some people don't understand what I said because I tried to explain them the history of Muhammad, the beginning of the history of the Arabs, which was that Muhammad united the different Arabic tribes, some of them with conversion and others with war by the sword. And I have proof here. I just wrote a little bit of history about the early history.
After how many years did he engage with war?
Sorry?
After how many years did he engage in war?
After how many years?
Did he, from his prophethood,
All right.
how many years did he engage
That's a
in
good
war?
question. Let me tell you. So,
I'll give you the answer.
okay, how many years?
13 years after he received his initial revelation, he was instructed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the God of this reality, mine and your Lord, to engage in these things.
That's not history. The fact, look, you saying...
It's not history. Did it happen in the past?
Wait. Let me tell you something. The fact that there went 13 years after he started preaching Islam until he started waging war, that's a historical fact. But what isn't a historical fact, that is a historical fact.
Wait. Say what you just said again.
What you said is a historical fact, except the part when where God told him to wage war. That's not a historical fact. That's a religious notion. That's your notion. And you can't use it as a historical fact. You can't say that he waged war because God told him to wage war. That's not accepted by historians nowadays. Now, let me tell you about the dates and about what happened. 570.
this man came prepared.
Yeah, man, I came prepared this time. Look, usually I come to Speaker's Corner as more or less of a joke. I come here, I talk around to people. I just like to talk to people. I just like to ask some questions and to answer questions and to give my own opinion about things. It's not personal at all. But after I saw some videos in the SC Dawa channel, I understood that for some people it's really serious business. And they really go there and they really talk shit about some people, especially about Christians, atheists and agnostics. Now, I don't agree with Christians or atheists, but I at least hear out their opinion. And good channels such as Content Over Everything, they show you an unbiased opinion. They're not, look, it's not their opinion. They
But
just
I don't
show
think you have a topic, you know. You're just going on
Sorry?
different. You're just speaking about like 50 different things.
Yeah, I'm talking about it. But
no, wait, no, but like,
let me
like-
choose a topic. Let me choose
To be honest,
history as a topic.
I'm going to say this honestly, yeah, because I like to think I like to think of myself as an honest person, a sincere person.
Fair enough.
I don't have enough knowledge about the Islamic Golden Age to debate it. You understand? Like for example, like we know the Ottoman Empire was an Islamic empire, yeah. But did they do things good? Yes, they did. Did they do things bad? Yes, they did. You understand what I mean? But I don't have that enough knowledge to tell you all of the good things when you are prepared to bring 60
No, bro,
points
this is not
how
about
they
this
did.
is not about the Islamic Golden Age. This is about the beginning of Islamic history, beginning of Islam.
No, but look.
That's what this is. It. This
No,
is
but I
not
can
that
tell
much.
you-
This is
no,
only
but
a few
look,
dates.
But look, I can tell you, yeah. I can tell you as a fact, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't engage in any type of violence, yeah, for the first 13 years of his prophecy, and that is a fact.
Fair enough. 570, Muhammad is born. This date is sometimes contested. It's not certain, but it was
But
around
you know-
570. 610, Muhammad starts preaching after having the revelations. 615, Muhammad is prosecuted, and he sent some of his followers to Abyssinia. 622, Muhammad migrated from Mecca to Medina because he was heavily prosecuted in Mecca. 629, December, Muhammad unites tribes under the constitution of Medina. 8 years of wars against the Meccan tribes, and he gathered 10,000 warriors.
Okay, let me just stop you there.
After which he captured
Let me just
Mecca.
stop you there. Let me just stop you there. So I'm gonna refer this back to when we actually first started speaking, yeah?
Can I say a poem?
Sure, go ahead.
Go on.
I have a feeling something needs to be said.
Go ahead.
So I've written this poem to put in your head.
Okay.
But I have nothing in my head that I feel needs to be said. Then again, I've still written this shit you just read.
The poem has already started.
So could it mean that what you are reading
This is Speaker's Corner, people.
has a reason and
A
has a
place of
meaning?
intelligent discourse.
And if it does,
And just freedom
then
of
what
speech.
can it mean? Or could it be just some next shit to read? Now even I'm confused.
I don't know what this has any
I don't know what to do.
relevance.
No, but he's rhyming actually.
Should I keep
so
writing this shit?
That's interesting.
Trust me, I ain't. But still I have this feeling that what you might not be reading
We're looking at this guy like,
has a reason and has a meaning. So try again reading or writing, whatever you're doing, in the hope that you will figure out the meaning.
oh man, like almost gonna start trolling.
We'll do, bro. We'll do.
What's in there? What's in there? Vodka, yeah?
A hug.
Oh, come on, fuck it.
So wait, before,
That's a nice
before
moment.
we were speaking off camera, yeah? When we were speaking off camera, yeah, just to go back to the topic of some, yeah? When we were speaking off camera and before you said, yeah, that I want the camera to be brought forth.
Sorry, I can't hear you. Could you?
Before you said to me that you want the camera to be brought forth,
Yeah.
yeah, we were speaking, yeah, and we had not numerous amount of conversations. What are you saying, bro? You good?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man, cool. You still on the spiritual thing, yeah, I can
Yeah,
see.
bro, I got a little message to give, man.
Jeez,
Got
yeah,
a message
please.
to give. How's everyone?
Yeah, I want to speak to you about spirituality, bro.
Bro, I'm with you, bro.
I want to speak to you about spirituality.
Listen, bro.
Hey, look, this is the
Remy, you get me?
spiritualist himself.
Remy,
Big up,
but yeah, man.
big up, big up.
This
Big up.
recording. This live, yeah.
Yeah, we're having a little.
Anyway, as I was saying, I was
Hey, bro,
I was explaining the
spirituality.
beginning of the Islamic, not of the Islamic, of the Islamic civilization, the conquests of Muhammad of the different Arabic tribes. So we stopped at
No, wait,
six.
I was saying
Come
something.
on, man. You-
Bro, but you could know because look. Before
Okay, go ahead.
Before we was talking about something.
Go ahead.
And then obviously we look. I asked you a question. Yeah. I asked you what's your views about Islam.
Yeah.
And then you then told me, you then said something along the lines that obviously I don't believe in Allah, innit?
Yeah.
But and then you said to me on this film that, or I don't know if it was off camera or on camera, you said that what did you say about your belief in the Creator? You said that you don't know if he does exist or he doesn't exist. What did you say?
Yeah, that's part of what I said, true.
And then in this conversation,
Ban Omar's channel.
Sorry?
I agree with you. What's that fancy NTS Greeks, man? You're done. You're done now.
and then obviously in this topic of conversations, you started going back to the Islamic golden age.
You know?
Well, not the Islamic golden age.
Yeah, because
started
you
with
asked
Islam.
about money. When you asked about money,
No, but this is
I
off camera.
told you about
No,
the
but
Islamic golden
this is the
age.
thing. You've jumped onto so many different topics right
No,
now.
I didn't. You're jumping right now because I'm
I'm-
explaining
if-
early Muslim history. Now you're trying to get me out of this argument to another argument.
I'm trying to bring back our debate or our talk.
There was no
to
our
what-
debate.
It
I was
was
talking to my friend. You came to me, started filming me. I asked you, hello, why are you filming?
This
You
was off
explained me.
camera, yeah?
You wanted to know what.
Bruv, I'm leaving this guy, fam. I'm leaving this guy, bro.
Fine, leave me. But look, bro, if you want to talk, let's talk about this. But let's not jump to other things. You see, that's the problem because when people notice that they can't win an argument, they start jumping to different things. They start jumping to different arguments.
When we first came on camera, and you said to me, yeah, that let's have this conversation that we were talking about, and when you said let the camera come forward, what did you say? What was the topic of conversation when you said let the camera bring?
Because I wanted to talk about this.
The first conversation
That's
that
why
we
I came
engaged
here.
with, and you said that let the camera come. What was it?
What the? I
Your
don't
belief
remember
in the
now.
Creator.
Okay, fair enough.
And then you
So,
started, and then you changed the subject at least twice, and you went on several different tangents.
bro, you need to be
And now I've tried
patient.
to bring the conversation back to your belief in the Creator. You're dismissing it. Why?
Bro, you need to be patient. I prepared a whole bunch of stuff, and part of this stuff is my own belief, is my own trust. What I trust to be true, which is, I'm not exactly certain, I'm not 100% certain it's the truth, but I trust it. I have a certain amount of trust in it. And it's about the philosophy of 3 different philosophers that I will explain later. But to come to that, I need to first go through the Islamic history, because you also asked about my
How
belief
does Islamic
in Allah.
history relate to your belief in God?
Because it relates to Allah, which is your God, which is the God you're talking about.
Islamic history relates to Allah.
Yes.
Yes, it does in a certain extent. To a
Surely
certain
it
extent,
doesn't
but
matter what you believe in.
it does.
innit?
Wait. It does in a certain extent. But first, I just want to understand from where you're coming from in your belief in the Creator. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, you can say that I'm agnostic,
And I want to
it's
ask.
fine.
No, but I wanted to ask you then about the prophets. Do you know who the prophets are?
I
Do you
do.
believe in the prophets?
No,
So you know who the prophets are, but you don't believe in the prophets? No. Why not?
because I don't think they're trustworthy.
Well, why not? Why do you not believe that they're trustworthy?
Because they speak in kind of metaphors. They don't speak in exact text. At this year, this will happen. This year, this will happen. They speak in metaphors, in poetry, in different things, which can be interpreted in many different ways. Now, even if the prophets did tell you the truth, there are thousands of different interpretations that you can take, and your interpretation is not certain to be true. That is the main reason why I don't believe in prophets. Because even if they are correct, we
Prophets-
probably don't have the right
prophets-
prophecy.
A prophet is somebody who has got prophecy from God, yeah, Allah. Yeah, that's what a prophet is.
Well, that's your definition of a prophet.
So what's your definition of a prophet?
My definition of a prophet is somebody who explains you what will happen in the future. It doesn't matter if he gets that information from God or
prophets,
whoever.
prophets of mankind have predicted a fair amount of things, bro.
That's your opinion. That's fair enough.
Bro, it's fact.
Well, you think it's fact, but it's not fact.
Bro, but I could, you know what? Yeah, I'm ending this conversation. The reason why I'm ending this conversation.
Look, if you
Because I can wait.
if you are a little patient and you let me finish about the Islamic early history, I will come to philosophy. And when I come to philosophy, I'm more than certain that I will answer your question. There is one philosopher.
Philosophy has no basis.
There is one philosopher that will answer your question
Bro, there's
about
no
prophecies.
No, you know philosophers.
I promise it to you.
You know, I have a friend. Yeah, what? Are you gonna come here next week?
Yes.
Inshallah, yeah.
Sorry?
Inshallah, in God willing, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because the reason why I said inshallah is because are you gonna come here next week?
Yes.
You can say yes.
Yes.
But you don't know within the next week if you're gonna die or
Of course
not.
I don't.
So then it's God willing. And as Muslims,
if you accept
and
the
as
existence of
Muslims,
God.
we are not. Wait. As Muslims, we are not allowed to say that I am going to do this or I am going to do this, but by saying inshallah.
It's your choice.
Because without God's will, nothing exists.
It's your choice. It's your choice
Yeah,
to
it's
think
a choice, it's a
that
choice.
every single
a
will
choice.
you have belongs to your God. I don't like that. I don't like every single part of my being belonging to some other entity, because that is a philosophical ideology that is called the evil genius.
Even if that be- yeah,
the
100%.
evil genius.
Even if
Probably
that
some
being
of you
created you
heard
and
of
I.
it. Evil genius is when every single part of your will and every single action of you is manipulated by some transcendent being that does it by his own will.
but
Now,
even if
Muslims
that-
and Christians and all the religious people, basically, their ideology is the ideology in the evil genius. And I don't like that ideology, honestly,
This
so
guy
I don't
just
follow
started
it.
Next thing, fam.
I mean, you can talk to me or you can stop talking to me. It's your choice.
Yeah, I'm not
Just
gonna
as
lie.
like believing in God, it's your choice.
No, but before, look, this is why I said, yeah, because we can't move on from a conversation. If you're talking about Islam, we can't move on to a conversation from when I understand your point of
What
view.
conversation do you want to have?
Wait, bro, this is what I've been saying for the last, I don't know how long, bro. I said we can't, first year, when I said before, we can't move on from a topic unless I establish your point of view on a God. Off camera, you said to me, what did you say to me about your belief in a God?
Okay, I'm agnostic.
You said to me, no, what did you exactly say? You said,
That I will God to exist. I want God to exist. But I can't bring myself to believe in a certain shape and form of God.
none of us can. We can't comprehend the Creator.
Yes.
So I agree with you.
But I want to believe in God, although I don't believe in God. Do you understand my opinion on God now?
Okay, no. This is a better question for me to ask you, yeah? Just so we can be clear, one point as a debate, yeah? Do you agree or do you disagree if I was to say this universe had a creator?
I disagree. But I'm not certain.
Okay, you disagree, but for what reason?
The reason for that
Wait,
is
actually,
quantum physics.
bro,
and I
you know,
have
I'm going,
another
because-
text
bro, you
about
don't have
quantum
to-
physics, because today I came prepared and I can answer every single one of your questions if you are patient.
Bro, but look, something like quantum physics is so sophisticated. Yeah. So what do you say about the start of the universe, bro? Is it the Big Bang theory you adhere to, bro? You're not giving me any answers.
Yes, I
And
adhere
you
to
looked
the
at
Big
me.
Bang theory.
All you said to me, yeah, when I asked you that question, I disagree, and then I had to tell you to
What's the
respond,
question? How was the universe
bro.
created?
Hey, bro, I'm going. Assalamu alaikum. Bro, I'm going in it.
What's your
nice.
question?
Yeah, I won't say it's nice speaking to you.
Not
because-
talking to you, bro.
Yeah, kind of, innit?
Bye-bye. Anyway, we were in the early years of the Islamic age. So let me. Okay. You can film if you want. It's okay. Let's rephrase it a little bit. Let's come from the beginning again, because I was interrupted like 10 times. 570, Muhammad is born. 610, he started preaching. 615, Muhammad is prosecuted, and he sent some of his followers to Abyssinia. 622, Muhammad migrated from Mecca to Medina. 629, December, he unites the tribes under the constitution of Medina. 8 years of wars with the Meccan tribes, and he gathered 10,000 warriors and he captured Mecca. In 629, he had an unsuccessful attack on the Byzantine Empire, which the reason for that is usually accepted by Muslim scholars, and I tend to agree, honestly, with the Muslim scholars about this, that he sent diplomats to every single corner of the world to spread the word of Allah. And in a client state of the Byzantine Empire, north of the Arabic tribes, they declined that offer and they killed the messenger. Now, killing the messenger in the ancient times is an open declaration of war. So Muhammad answered to that by declaring war upon that tribe. I don't remember exactly the name of the tribe, but it was a client kingdom of the Byzantines. And he marched on that kingdom. Now, the Byzantines at that point, they were prepared, they had a strong military, so they answered and they beat him back. They defeated Muhammad. But he did have a reason to attack them. It's true. I don't deny that. Now, moving right along. 632, Muhammad dies without fulfilling another campaign against the Byzantine, even though they already had planned it. The Rashidun... Huh? Yes, that's it. Now, Abu Bakr took power after Muhammad died. Now, this is the beginning of the distinction between the Shia and the Sunni, because the Sunni were supporting Abu Bakr, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, we'll come to that later. But this was the beginning of the distinction, because Ali was supposedly the right successor to Muhammad, even though Abu Bakr was chosen. Now, Now, Abu Bakr was quashing some rebellions in Arabia because not everybody was pledging allegiance to it. He sent 20,000 men against under Khalid ibn al-Walid, which is a well-known name amongst Muslims. It's a very brilliant Muslim tactician and general who waged many wars against the Byzantines and the Sassanids and won almost all of his battles. He launched a campaign, a blitz campaign against the Sassanids. First he was sent to conquer Byzantine Syria and Sassanid Mesopotamia. In April, he invades the Sassanids. December, he reaches the Byzantine border and defeats a Byzantine and Sassanid army at the Battle of Feroz. He took Damascus in September 634. Abu Bakr died and was replaced by Umar. The Byzantines under Heraclius, Emperor Heraclius, and the Sassanids under Yazdagud III allied and attacked the Muslims. In 636, there was the Battle of Yarmouk, where Khalid beats the Byzantines again. Al-Qadisir, another battle. Khalid wins again. Ctesiphon, it was the Sassanid capital. It was captured by Khalid in 636, same year. 637, the capture of Jerusalem by the Muslims. 640, Emir ibn Alas invades Egypt. There's the Battle of Heliopolis that he wins. The conquest of Alexandria, ending the 700 years of Roman rule in Egypt. Failed invasion of Christian Nubia, which was at that point known as the Kingdom of Makuria. It was south of Egypt. They tried invading them, but they were repelled. 641, retaliation against the Sassanid raids, who were raiding the Muslims at this point, and the conquest of Kurdistan. 642, Yazdagud III fled east. The Sassanid Empire crumbled, and the Muslims took Isfahan and many other territories. 644, Caliph Umar was killed by a Persian assassin. Uthman is the new caliph over Muhammad's cousin Ali, who many believed should be the caliph. Again, not Ali, but another caliph is elected. Many rebellions in Persia because, insurrections. 647, Tripoli was captured. 651, rest of the Sassanid Empire is captured, ending the Sassanian dynasty's 400 rule over that fraction of the Persian Empire. 655, Battle of the Masts, a naval battle, which was won by the Arabs, and they started raiding Sicily and Cyprus. Uthman angered the Egyptians by electing Umayyad clansmen, his kinsmen, as governors. So the Egyptians started protesting and revolting against him, and eventually Uthman was killed in one of these rebellions. Ali, who was Muhammad's cousin, was elected as caliph, but Muhammad's widow, Aisha, disliked him and led an army versus him. Ali won the Battle of Camels, but this began the first fitna, which is known as the separation, as the segregation, right? Which means that two factions were formed. The Shia supported Ali. Sorry?
You should say because of some misconception.
Well, it was basically a struggle of power. That's why the
politics
first
is not religion.
Yes, you can say that, but at this point, politics is related to religion because from this point onward, Ali. Let me get to that later. I'll talk about it later. Let me just say another few things. So Shia supported Ali, and the Sunni were led by the Umayyads, which were one of the tribes in Saudi Arabia. 661, Ali was defeated.
Not just Shia support Ali.
Sorry?
Sunni and Shia support Ali.
No, Shia supported Ali, and Sunnis were led by
there were
Umayyads.
Sunnis amongst them as
Imam
well.
Ali is the leader for Sunni and Shia, for all Muslim people, not just for Shia.
Why did they have
We
the
believe
wars
that
then?
Imam
I told
Ali,
you politics, not religion.
Well, Ali lost in the end.
No. Ali is not for Shia just. Ali for the Sunni.
Sunnis and the Shia.
That's not how history records.
No.
That's how you don't
Read
understand.
again.
I mean, you can say that, but you need some proof. If you want to prove me
All
that
the
the
Sunni
Shia,
people
both the
support
Shia,
Ali.
okay, if both the Shia and the Sunni supported Ali,
No, there
then
was-
who was supporting
What's the meaning of
Umayyads?
Shia? What's the meaning of Shia?
Some of the
What's the
Muslim
meaning of
Shia?
Some of the Muslim
What's the
people.
meaning of Shia?
The Shia were supporting Ali,
No,
and the
Shia
Sunnis were
itself. When you say Shia,
what the word Shia itself?
Yeah.
You tell me. What does the word Shia
supporters
mean?
or a group supported Ali. a group.
Okay.
Did you get the point
And what
now?
does Sunni mean?
Not all the Muslims support Imam Ali. They say
Sunni
Shia.
is
No.
who continue the Sunnah of the Prophet, his tradition.
Imam Ali.
So when
continued
Imam
the
Ali
Sunnah
became
of-
the Khalif, it was for everybody, even the group who called Shia.
Yeah, he became the caliph for everybody, but there were insurrections against him, led by Aisha, as I told you. And she
Because
raised
of
an
some
army and she
misconception.
fought him.
No,
She
no,
fought
I
him
agree,
on the
I
battle,
agree,
and
I agree.
he was defeated by him.
Nobody denied
But
that.
at the time
Nobody
of
denied
Imam
that.
Ali, there is no Sunni and Shia.
Let's come to the religious
go
talk
on,
a
go
bit
on.
later.
Nobody denying that.
So basically, 661, Ali was defeated by the Umayyads, which ended the Rashidan Caliphate, which is known as the Caliphate of the righteous heirs of Muhammad, right? And the rule of the rightly guided, again, caliphs ends. The fitna ends. The first fitna ends with this. Now, this is the early history of Islam. The first part, the first fragment of Islamic history is the conquest of Muhammad in Saudi Arabia, which lasted from 622 to 632. Then there was the Rashidun Caliphs, which lasted from 632 to 661. The third part and the final part of the Islamic ages was the Umayyad Caliphs, which they lasted from 661 to 750. Do you agree with that?
I think so.
Fair enough.
I'm not
So,
that good in history of it.
So, what were we talking about with the Shia and the Sunni? I'm not going to enter into religious arguments
No,
about
you
their
don't.
ideology
You don't.
because it's, in the end, they're not that different from each other. They might sometimes say that they believe in different
but-
things,
but
but
I'm
the main
saying-
reason is political,
I know,
and I know that.
but an outsider, you don't know the nitty-gritty, why it happened, what was happening, who said what, who were the munafiq, like the hypocrites among them, who led them to fight. Do you know what I mean? You don't know the ins and outs of it.
I don't think there were any hypocrites, honestly. It was a struggle of power, just like any other struggle of power in history.
No, I get that, but inside his circle, let's say the Ali circle and the Aisha circle, like there were people, especially in the Ali circle, there were people who, what we call them the munafiqs, the hypocrites, who provoked all this. Do you get my point?
Yeah.
They were that close to get to a agreement, but because of the hypocrites, they had to fight at the end.
Okay, but look, you have to admit that the Umayyads took power after the Rashiduns.
Yeah.
Is that true? And the Umayyads, they were not known as the righteous caliphs. They were known as a tribe, as one of the tribes
Yeah,
in
but
Saudi Arabia.
that's why we call it the first fitna.
The first
you have to
fitna.
understand fitna now.
I know, it's segregation. It's
No, segregation, but it's also
it's separation, basically.
yeah.
It's more or less
That's
like that. It's
linguistic
more,
but
yes.
fitna is something which like an evil thing comes, like hatred comes or disputements come.
Okay, fair
we
enough.
call that fitna as well. So when disputement comes, that's why we call it fitna.
Okay.
Because that was the time of the righteous people finished as the prophet prophesied.
Fair enough. I mean, you can say that, but again, it's a religious belief. It's not historical fact. We can argue about it all day, but what I like to follow is history. It's what actually happened, and not the trying to know why they were arguing.
But these things are written in the history books
religious
of the Muslims as
differences.
well.
Huh?
These things in the history.
Yeah, this is the history of I mean, this is the history. If you disagree about what I said, then anybody is free to contest what I just said, because I did some research about this,
you didn't.
so I could say exactly what it is. Because I had an argument on camera on the SC Dawa channel with the guy that they call Mansour.
Okay.
I'm certain you know him.
I know him.
And I had an argument about early Islamic history. And what I told him was basically what I read, except without the dates. I told him first Muhammad conquered the different Arabic tribes, then he waged war, not he, but his successors waged war on the Sassanids and on the Romans. And then, there was a change in rule by them from the Rashiduns to the Umayyads, and a new caliphate was formed from that. That's what I told him. But he said to the camera, and by the comment section that I read, everybody believed him, that I was lying, that I was giving him a Eurocentric and very biased opinion. Now, my opinion about this, you might say it's biased, but if you say, I'm not talking actually about you specifically, I'm talking about anyone. If somebody says that my opinion about this is biased, they need to prove me with the historical facts why is it biased. Now, I don't like being slandered. If I am hateful and rude to somebody, I'll admit it. But I wasn't hateful and I wasn't rude. In fact,
what was your point of argument that you were making out of this?
We were just talking about history. I don't remember exactly how it started, but we came to
point.
Islamic history.
I cannot comment on that conversation because I don't know the nitty-gritty. How did it start? What were you trying to make a point, and what was he trying to make a point?
Okay,
because
I think
you must have said these things to prove a point.
Yeah, I think the point was for me to, for him to give praise to the Arab people and not to the Muslim God for the achievements of the Arab people, because the Arabs, they did what they did because they have had the skill, they had the intellect, they had the union to do it.
Yeah.
The Byzantine Empire was, and the Sassanid empires were weakened because of wars
sure
with
if
each
you
other.
ask him,
they attacked them and they
did
won.
it with what? He will say it as well that he did it with the help of God.
I'm certain that he will say that they did it with the help of God.
Yeah.
But I don't believe in that. And I don't like the opinion.
No, of course you don't believe,
No,
but remember, he's a religious person.
Yes.
He will say what he
Yes,
thinks.
but he can't tell me that I'm slandering his people because I'm telling him historical facts.
If you
and that's
read
exactly
an
what he was
historical
doing.
fact, I'm sure Mansour brother will not say you're slandering.
He was saying that I was
but
slandering
what
him.
was you trying to make a point? Like,
My point was for him to not give all the praise to the God, to give the praise to your people, and not to the
but
God.
you cannot tell him that.
Yes, I can. Why can't
No,
I?
but he's a religious person.
So what? Does that mean he's free from criticism?
No, but he's not free, but that's his position of thinking
Yes,
that
but
way.
he can't start slandering people because they criticize
What do you mean by
him.
slandering?
Because he started slandering me because of what I was telling him.
What was the
He
slander?
said to the camera that I had a very Eurocentric and biased opinion of Islamic history. And I'm trying to prove that I don't have a biased opinion. I might not know every single nick
when
and
you
cranny
say
of
your
Islamic
opinion,
history.
what is your opinion on Islamic history?
That the Muslims, led by Muhammad, they conquered the Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
After that, they conquered the Sassanid and the Roman Empire,
Yeah.
almost all of the Roman and all of the Sassanid. And after that, they had the Umayyad Caliphate.
Yeah.
That's my opinion, what actually happened. Now, his perspective was that they conquered those lands not because they managed to conquer them, but because God allowed them to conquer
But that's
them.
his religious beliefs.
Yes, and I wouldn't mind. Except
where
that he
did he
started
slander you?
insulting
Where
me
did he
because of
slander
it.
you?
Because he said I had a Eurocentric and biased opinion when I told him actual history. Do you understand what I'm telling you? He told me I was Eurocentric and biased, and I don't admit that. I was called sometimes a fascist and a Nazi here just because I was arguing with the socialist, and I don't admit those things. And thus, when I am slandered, I will prove the person who
Why
slandered
don't
me
you?
wrong.
Why don't you? If it, I mean, I wouldn't say that he slandered you.
I would say that he slandered me.
I agree.
How is
But if
saying
it-
your
but if it
history
was me,
Eurocentric?
let's say-
how is it Eurocentric?
because
Explain
you
to
might
me.
have grown up in a society that you got your ideas and your way of thinking into the world from the surroundings that you grew up
Well,
with.
obviously, but it doesn't mean I'm discarding the achievements of the Muslims, of the Arabs, of the Persians.
No, I know, but
It doesn't
no,
mean
I
that.
don't
And
know
Eurocentric
why we
means
are-
that I only consider the European
Okay.
achievements
If it
as
was
worthy.
if it was me, felt that
Yes,
somebody
but I'm
slandering
not
me,
talking
I would
about
go
you.
to him. I'm saying if it was me instead of you, you should go to Mansour and say, you know what? I felt that you slandered me. This is the facts. Tell me where did I lie or where did I was biased.
It's
You
not
should have
about
done
asking him where I lied. It's just that I didn't lie. I told him the same things that I'm
But
telling
why
you right
he-
now.
I'm
Because he felt that I wasn't certain of it, and thus he could humiliate me on camera. Because that's how many people argue here. They do what I call polite
wouldn't-
heckling.
he wouldn't
They
want to
start
humiliate
trying
you.
they start feigning as if they are engaging in a conversation.
but now
with
you look
in
at the
reality,
benefit of it.
when in
Now you
reality,
went
they're
and-
not
and
listening to
looked
you, and they're
into
just
it.
waiting for a moment to ridicule your argument. Not even to disprove it, just to ridicule it.
did the research, you got more knowledge now, isn't it?
Of course I did.
There we go.
I got the dates. But it's the same, in the end, it's the same history that I was telling him. Nothing is different. I was telling him this thing,
I
except
cannot
without the
comment.
dates.
I cannot because
You can watch the video.
No, I will.
you know, the channel SC Dawa conveniently placed on the comment section, you know, not on the comment, but on the description that Brother Mansour tries to put some sense into an agnostic, which is actually, you know, very rude, honestly, and I don't appreciate it. But again, I don't find myself very upset because of it, but because I was expecting it in the end. I don't mind myself to be, you know, to be talked crap on the internet, but you need to have a reason for it. And if you are slandering me, I will prove you wrong. That's it. Now, I have another example of how I appreciate the achievements of Muslims. And this example is one of the greatest Muslims who ever lived, who is called, he has a long name, Abu Abdullah Muhammad ibn Musa al-Khwarizmi. Also known as
Khawarizmi.
It's okay. It's badly pronounced. Now,
No,
here,
well done, well done.
Here you can say
well
that
done.
I'm Eurocentric.
No, I know. I'm saying
Because
well
I
done.
might be pronouncing it
You
badly.
pronounce it.
Al-Khwarizmi, fair enough. He was born in a region which is called Khwarezm. It's in the oasis near the not in the Adriatic. It's another sea, but basically it's a region called Khwarezm. Now it's Uzbekistan in 780. Just so I check the dates, so you guys don't think I'm lying about him. Now, what did this guy do? He's one of the greatest men who ever lived, because he wrote one of the most important books in humanity. He studied Ptolemy's math and other philosophers to measure the world. Khwarizmi discovered Ptolemy's calculations were actually wrong, and he corrected them with new coordinates from 70 geographers under his direction. The Face of the Earth was one of the books in which he explained geography of Earth. It was a book made by him, and he explained cartography. It was one of the most detailed, if not the most detailed book at that age. After that, he complied charts of the track of the moon and the 5 planets. You know, the 5 planets that were observable at that time, which is fair enough. Fair enough. It's already an achievement. He made another book, and this is the important book, which was called, in translation, of course, because I'll butcher the actual name, the Compendious Book of Calculation on Completion and Balancing. Now, this book was explaining linear and quadratic equations solved with what he called al-Yabr, or also known as the completion in Arabic. And al-Yabr, as we know, is the origin of the word algebra. It was, you know, algebra already existed before this guy, but he evolved it. Yeah. No, wait. We'll come to that later. Yeah, that's true, but we'll come to that soon. Now, this guy, he didn't discover algebra itself, but he greatly evolved it, and he corrected it, and he gave basis to what the future mathematicians would have after him. Again, I'm not denying. In fact, I praise this guy very much. I praise Al-Khwarizmi very much. He was okay. Let's keep going about the decimals. What you were saying. Let's come to that now. Now he no. Let me jump some things so we jump straight into it. Here we go. He codified knowledge from different traditions and different sources, especially from Greeks and Indians. Now, the Indians are the key here in terms of the numbers, because he studied ancient Egyptian texts with Hindu numerals, and he changed them slightly. He adapted them to have to create the numbers that we know nowadays, which are known as the Arabic numbers. They weren't exactly Arabic numbers, because even Al-Khwarizmi, he was Persian in reality, but he was a Muslim. He was studying the Indian numbers. And so, you know, we know them as Arab numbers, but they're not exactly, it's not exactly factual, but fair enough. That's how we call them. And he was known as algorithmi in Latin, which, again, is how we have the word algorithms. So, when somebody tells me that I slander the Islamic civilization and what they did in the past, I find myself very conflicted, because I really want to insult them back. But I don't want to, because if you start insulting each other, just like that, calling each other names, nothing will happen out of it. And people can comment whatever they want about me, but I want you guys to think about it a little bit. What do you look like? What do you look like when you're commenting that? Because when I looked at those comments, I thought of my class when I was 9 years old, honestly. When they picked, not even me, when they picked on some kid and started calling him names. That's the level of maturity that the channel of SC Dawa has. That's the level of maturity that it spreads amongst its watchers. And that's the criticism that I'm going to make. And if anybody has a criticism of me, then go right ahead and talk to me. Go right ahead and argue with me. Now, this ends my research on the Arabs and on their history and on their achievements. Because this is the conversation I had with Mansour. And I find that people misunderstand a lot of what I say because I don't give them actual numbers, which is the reason why I brought this. Because I thought,
Good man, good on
I
you.
can talk about this, but I can't tell you all the dates and all the names.
Research
I just
about
don't remember all of it.
Ibn Sina.
I heard of it.
Research about the father of opticians, which gave the first optical lens to the world, was an Arab, was a Muslim. Ibn Sina was the first doctor who said we need to separate the people because there is a germ who flies in the air.
Yeah,
So the first hospital was built in the Muslim land.
to prevent contamination. Yeah.
Yes.
True.
So
true.
you should research about those as well.
Now, this ends the first part of my preparations. This was my argument with Mansour. Now, I had other arguments, and my other argument that was posted in the channel SC Dawa was with a guy called, I think, Hashim, right? Is that his name? I'm not sure about his name. He's a bit less known than Mansour, but fair enough. I do remember it slightly. Now, I had a conversation with him, and he used very, very refined and very professional, polite heckling against me. And at that point, I was caught completely off guard. And honestly, it hurts to me to watch those videos because part of fault is with myself. You know,
Is it
in
your
the
ego?
comments,
Is it your ego?
it is. Because look, the problem is that he's not actually denying my argument or proving me wrong. He's just insulting the argument and making it look ridiculous. And thus, I got really upset and really emotional about it. And I was,
But can be
rolling my
can be an
eyes and
argument
doing this and
ridiculous.
doing that. Sorry?
Can be an argument or a conversation be ridiculous? Can
Yes,
it
it
be?
can.
Okay then, that's fine. That's fine.
It
Go
can.
ahead.
Any argument can be ridiculous if proven so.
So is he right that if he thought that your conversation was ridiculous, he can say it?
No, he can say it. I'm not blaming him specifically. I'm not blaming Mansour himself or Hashim himself. What I'm blaming is the channel SC Dawa because they encourage the people to comment badly about others, and you know it gives a really bad reputation to Muslims. Honestly, I was very disappointed in the things I saw there because I thought, in terms of conversation, that when I spoke with Christians, they usually get immediately emotional and they start telling you, no, you need to believe in Lord, you need to believe in God. And I thought that the Muslims actually engaged a little bit more. They at least tried. But what I saw in the conversations is that they are professionals in polite heckling. But again, I'm not criticizing them that much because even though polite heckling, I don't respect it and I don't like it, but it's their choice. They're not openly insulting me. They're not openly attacking me physically, you know. They're not stupid in what they do. They're clever, they're just not as lean, as, you know, as straightforward as I would like them to be. Now, what I am actually criticizing is the watchers and the channel. That's my main point. That's my main point.
The
here.
biased one.
Yeah, the biased channel. Yes, that's what I'm actually
Not
criticizing.
the biased viewers.
That too. That
You can
too.
say that.
But look, I had some conversations with other people, and one argument that was made against me many times is to tell me, you know, when I told them nothing is certain, they would tell me things that are certain. For example, 1 + 1 = 2. How can you argue against that? The first time that argument was made against me, honestly, I
But that's a
didn't
good
have
argument.
any
If
words.
you say nothing is certain, and he comes with an argument, there are things which are certain.
Be
1
patient,
+
be
1
patient,
makes
be
2.
patient, be patient. Very soon I will come to those arguments.
No,
Now,
but is it the right one? When he says there are things which are certain.
I discovered the way of interpreting it, that it might not actually be the right one. And I'll explain you everything.
I hope it makes 1 + 1 3.
Wait. It's not like that. It's not like that. It's more complicated than that. Now, this is the problem in arguing about these things, because I am at a huge disadvantage with people who just accept these realities. Because I need to actually go ahead and explain them very complicated things. I need to disprove absolute realities that everybody accepts, which is very complicated. And honestly, I'm not clever enough to do it just by myself. That's why I did this research. And this research is about 3 philosophers and some other things that I researched about. First philosopher is one of my favorite philosophers. His name is David Hume. Now, David Hume is a Scottish philosopher. He was born in the 18th century in Scotland, and he studied epistemology mainly, and he was a very big skeptic. Now, what does Hume say? Hume divides knowledge into three different things. The first thing that he divides knowledge into is relations of ideals. What are relations of ideals? Relations of ideals are things whose denial is inconceivable or self-contradictory. We find an idea or threatening, we find an idea nice or threatening and declare it true or false on that basis. Reason comes later to support the original attitude. You know, this is about feelings, but let's come back to the relations of ideals. Relations of ideals is they need to be true, they are necessary truths, and they are the operation of those independent on more operation of thought. Rather than dependence on anything existence in the universe. Now, there are the matters of fact, which is something that requires observation and not operations of thought, a posteriori. Relations of ideals is a priori. For example, 2 oranges plus 2 apples equals 4 pieces of fruit. You can't disprove that. 1 plus 1 equals 2. A triangle has 3 sides. That's the definition of a triangle. These are relations of ideals because they depend on a certain code that we invent. This code cannot be disproved by any means possible if you are inside the code. Let's go to the other one. Matters of fact. Matters of fact is something that requires observation and most operation and not operations of things, of thought.
Let's heckle him.
Huh? For example, it's raining right now. For example, I have a fluffy puppy. These are 2 examples. Imagine that it's raining right now. You can see that it's raining right now because you can perceive it around you. You know, it's considered as a fact. It's a matter of fact. You can see it raining. You assume that it's raining. You know you have a fluffy puppy, so you just know that you have it. There's no question about it to yourself. But if you tell somebody else on the other side of the earth that it's raining, they need to see it to believe it, at least to see a video of it or something. Or they can believe you, which brings us to the third one, which is called observed regularities. When we're dealing with matters of fact that we can't observe, we use observed regularities for interesting and important questions that we need an answer to. What do they mean? Examples. The premise is all observed F have been G. Conclusion. All observed F's are G's. Let me give you a more understandable example. All observed crows are black. That means that all crows are black, even though we never observed all the crows on Earth. You see the limits of this argument. The observed irregularities lasts as a common sense philosophy, as a common sense ideology. It's not 100% certain because there is always knowledge beyond what we can predict, beyond what we see. We can see many crows around Earth, but how can we claim for certain that we saw all the crows? It's a complicated thing to understand, but I hope I'm explaining myself well enough. Now, the difference between these 3 is that relations of ideals have 0% doubt. Arguing against them leads to self-contradiction and loss of logic. At least for now, let's accept that as fact. We'll come to them later. Matters of fact is something that requires observation of the outside world. You can say as a matter of fact that there's a bunch of people around me right now. There's people walking around, there's all that things, and you need to observe it to know it. These are matters of fact. You know it because you observe it. Now, observed regularities are predictions of the future that are based on matters of fact. After this explanation, I think we can go right ahead and come to a slightly different idea. Let's see if I can find it. Hopefully I can, because this is very... yes.
Mr. Rex!
Here it is. Now, this argument here is something I found is a very clever explanation of the matters of fact. Because matters of fact are basically codes. They are codified language that we need to begin with to accept. For example, we need to accept the symbol of 1 means 1, and the symbol of 2 means 2, and the symbol of 3 means 3. If two people don't agree on those definitions, then we don't have a matter of fact, not a matter of fact, a relation of ideas. Again, relations of ideas don't require observation. All they require is mental thought about them, logic thought. Let me explain you how they are not certain. Now, truths are timeless within logical systems, but the relationship given between any given such system and the outside world is uncertain. What does it mean? In theory, on paper, 1 + 1 will always equal 2. It cannot be ever doubted. But if you relate it to the real world, you need to decodify the 1 into something real, into something that actually exists. Now, the problem with that, we'll come to the problem a bit later, after some more explanation. The difficulty of logic is that all of the certainties it gives are of the if-then type. For example, if both agree that 1 is 1 and 2 is 2, in terms of symbolic representation, then yes, we have a fact. If they don't, we don't have a fact. If-then type, yes, and it's
still
the
here, bro.
truthfulness.
How long have you been here for?
I'm talking about.
Is this the
about
same video?
philosophy. No, yeah, it's the same video. I'm talking about David Hume. You know, I think you'd like to hear about it. I
Bro,
already
all of
went
this knowledge that you're speaking, it probably just doesn't even mean anything. Where did you get your sources from?
That's what you think.
No, but where did you get these sources from?
What, these sources? I researched about David Hume. David Hume.
Bro, what you
Where did you get your source? An old book.
Well, you've been there for almost an hour. Hey, everybody, I started a conversation with him. In that time, I went to McDonald's, I prayed, and you're still here, probably reading for some notes that are unauthentic.
I think you'd like to hear this. I think it would change your life. It might.
Change my life.
It might. Well, it's okay. Anyway, where were we? Ah, yes. Now, the difficulty of logic is that all of the certainties it gives us are of the if-then type. And it's the truthfulness of the if assumptions which we can never really know for certain. In other words, logic and mathematics are perfectly certain internally. It's just their application to the real world that's always uncertain. A perfect example of this is the Euclidean geometry. It's just as true as in the time of its invention, when Euclid invented it. But two seemingly parallel lines on the surface of the Earth will eventually intersect because the Earth is round. I mean, unless you're a flat Earth theorist, then, goodbye. I'm not even going to argue with those people. But if you believe that the Earth is round, then two seemingly parallel lines will eventually intersect because the Earth is round and they won't always go parallel. What does it mean? Does it mean that Euclidean was wrong? No, it doesn't. But it just means that his theory was made for a completely plane surface, for an absolute plane. It wasn't meant to be exactly the same in the real world. Now, what we have now is non-Euclidean geometry, which is a slight adaptation, slight difference between the real one. It applies Euclidean geometry to the universe and not to just Earth, because you can perceive the universe as a flat plane. At least that's how Einstein resembles gravity, as a flat plane that Earth kind of sinks into it, and it's very difficult to explain. But if you research Einstein's gravity, his theory about gravity, that's how gravity works for him. Now, Euclidean is still right, except that he's right on paper. He's not right in the real world. And the very subtle distinction between what we see on paper, the theories we see on paper, and the application of those theories is the reason why I told many people that I'm not certain that 1 + 1 = 2. Because if you see 1 as the codification of one thing, you need to have an exactly same another thing to sum it to get the exact 2, or else you might get 2.000001 or 1.9009991. Something like that. You know what I mean? It's the problem with the certainties, with the exact certain things. Now, that kind of certainty for me doesn't exist. because the application of codification into the real world is very complicated and it can't be done for certain. That's the real reason. But obviously, just like always, I wasn't taken seriously about it, because when a person says that 1 doesn't actually equal 1 in the real world, nobody will take him seriously if he doesn't explain it properly. And that's exactly why I have this boring and long explanation, because I don't want people to just consider what I'm saying the rabblings of a madman. What I'm saying isn't just pulled out of my backside. I actually researched it and I thought about it, and I can prove it. I can prove it to anybody who asks, if I come prepared. That's why I need to bring this, because no person can simply remember every single small vicissitude of knowledge that there is. Now, again, the spherical geometry is called non-Euclidean geometry. It's the real world geometry. And yeah, that's my explanation of his geometry. Let's continue. Oh, sorry, a little confusion here. 3, 2, 1. Let's continue to speak a little bit about philosophy. Let's talk about Descartes. Now, everybody knows René Descartes, the French philosopher, but not everybody knows his actual ideology for certain. What does it mean? What does ideology mean? Descartes throws away every fruit of the mind that isn't perfectly rational. Hume, on the other hand, says that almost nothing we do is perfectly rational, because everything we do, like the test of a belief, isn't provable truth, but it's utility. That is Hume's ideology, and honestly, I agree with it much more than with Descartes' ideology, because it's much more practical. Descartes thinks we actually can come to absolute truths that can't be denied. Now, as I explain to you later, the distinctions between the 3 different kinds of truths, as I said, the relations of ideas, the observed regularities, and the matters of fact. These 3 truths can all be debunked in a certain way, in one way or another. Of course, the relations of ideas are the most difficult to debunk, because we accept them or else we go crazy. But a different thing to deny is to be uncertain. And that is what I'm trying to expand here. It's the possibility that things might be slightly different as we perceive them to be. That is my whole point here. Again, I usually joke around, but when people are slandering what I'm saying, I can't joke around anymore. Let's talk a little bit more about Descartes. Now, Descartes came from the 17th century. He was a French philosopher. His catchphrase, as you may think, is "I think, therefore I am. Je pense, donc je suis. Cognito ergo sum," in Latin, and "Je pense, donc je suis" in French. Now, Discourse over Method was one of his first books. In this book, he kind of explains part of his ideology. His whole point is the method of doubts. It's the application of the concept of divide and conquer into knowledge. It's to divide every single part of knowledge you have into small parts and to question it and to prove it by reasonable means, little by little. Exactly. Reflecting personally about all experiences, human senses are unreliable. Even though his existence isn't certain to be as he perceives, his thought about it proves that at least he exists in some way. Now, this quote is me trying to debunk and the argument I had with Hassim. What's his name? Hashim. Sorry, I keep forgetting your name. Hashim. About not your. No, I'm talking just to about him. Hashim's discussion when he asked me, "Are you certain that you're not a woman?" No. Again, you might notice a theme going on here. Is 1 + 1? Does 1 + 1 equal 2? Is the sky blue? Is this that? Is this that? They are difficult questions to debunk. Now, the question to me, am I a woman? It's a question that is obviously meant to discredit me, to make me upset, to make me angry. And the first time he did it, I was actually a little bit upset because of it. But in the end, human senses are flawed, just like Descartes says. So anything you perceive to be absolute truth is not actually exactly as it is. Now, I won't bore you a whole lot with all this. for now, I want to give you guys only one last example. One last example of the, I have a whole testament here on quantum physics to explain how the world was formed, but I'm not going to start it right now. Maybe later. But what I want to talk about is just one little thing. I want to talk about color. I want to talk about how we humans see and, most importantly, perceive color. Now, when you see color, each of your cones, which are small organs inside your retina, so we have rods which perceive light and the lack of light. They basically work in low light situations. That's why our cones, which we only have one kind, only see the world as lighter, as light or dark. That's the only difference for the rods. I'm sorry, for the rods, because we only have one kind of rods in our retina. Now we have three kinds of cones, which is another kind of cells in our retinas, which perceive three different colors. These colors are red, blue, and green. What does this mean? It means that we perceive the reflection of light on different objects. Some objects, because light has different fluctuations, oscillations, and in other words, light itself is like a wave going on to us. The oscillation, the 500 oscillations per, the 500 trillion oscillations per second, that is the red light. We perceive that as the red light. The 550 oscillations per second, we perceive that as green light. The 650 oscillations per second, we perceive that as blue light. And the oscillations in between, we perceive it as a mix between two colors. Because, we don't actually perceive other colors other than these three colors. And that's why we have optic illusions many times. We only perceive these three colors, and if you mix these colors on TV, we don't actually notice the slight differences between them. So we see, when you mix red and blue, you will see purple. Not because that's purple, but because you just can't see the right color. You only see the mix between red and blue. Now, let's talk a little bit more about color. I wanted to give you the example of butterflies, because butterflies, instead of three different kinds of cones, they have more cones. Let me see the absolute number. No. Butterflies. Butterflies have 6 color sensors, so they see double the variety of colors. And the difference between colors is the frequency in which those oscillations happen. So it's all a matter of perception. Different animals and even different humans see different colors. And it's all a matter of perceiving the different oscillations, because there are oscillations higher than 650 and there are oscillations lower than 500. And thus, there are different colors than the colors that we can actually see in the world. That is my way of debunking the argument that the sky is blue, the grass is green, blah blah blah. Because that's our perception of the world. That's not how that's not the hard reality of how the world is. That's just what our senses tell us. Because that's the limit of them. That's the limit of our senses. And that's the conclusion of my talk for now. That don't trust that what your senses tell you is the absolute truth. You don't need to live in complete denial all the time, but always know that things might not be exactly as they seem. And that's it. Thank you very much for filming. Content over everything.
Content over everything. From your belly.
Man, say it straight. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to ITV. Listen.
So who am I? My name is Ramon Pavlov. I'm from Birmingham. For those who don't know me, this is my third time at Speaker's Corner. What brings me back here? You bring me back here, the human race. I bring peace and love to all. I'm here to bring a message from the Creator to let you know that now is Judgment Day. God ain't coming from out